Hello YouTube. Bane666 here. As most of you probably know, I started this series of videos to expose the lie that Elliot Rodger was connected to the men's rights movement. But I am now expanding it to cover any falsehoods, misconceptions, misinformation, or outright lies spread about the MRM. So let's get stuck into it. You might remember this clip from back in episode 20.
Well, and now I found the passage that I was talking about, and it's a man who calls himself Factory. And he said, let me just read this. A sore point for Factory, who has two daughters who, like young women everywhere, he says, compete for the most exaggerated rape claim. It is, he says, a status thing. When one of his daughters came home one night and said she'd been raped, he said, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Sitting with us, he hikes his voice up to a falsetto in imitation. "Oh, I just got raped." He laughs. There's a moment of silence. A bridge too far? I told her if she pressed charges, I'd disown her. Elam, the leader, de facto, I guess, of this movement, whose attention has drifted, grins through his beard. "That's good fathering," he said. But then Factory goes on to say, "If you don't have videotape or forensic, a whole lot of bruises, I don't give a fuck." Oh my God.
Yeah. So, what she just read is from Jeff Charlotte's GQ article, titled, "Are You Man Enough for the Men's Rights Movement?" And both the interview you just saw, and the article make Factory seem like a heartless father, who ignored his daughter's rape because, I don't know, misogyny, or all MRAs are like that, or some such thing. You know, typical rape culture bullshit. But if what Jeff reported was factual, that would make Factory a horrible person, right? I mean, what kind of monster would dismiss his own daughter's rape? But the key words here are, if what Jeff reported was factual. So as we only have Jeff's version of events, why don't we take a look at Factory's for fair comparison?
I figure I might as well get it out there. One of the first things that I should address is actually this crap article by Charlotte. Just for the record, anybody that actually is watching this video that might actually be familiar with it, I am the person that Charlotte is characterized as disowning his daughter for making a rape accusation. And the simple truth of the matter is that there was no rape. It was a straight up false accusation being concocted between my daughter and her friend right in front of me from scratch, that I had explained to her that doing something like that isn't this small little issue that she figured that it would be. It was actually a life-destroying sort of an issue for a guy, and that I would disown her if she had done that. After having had me explain what was involved for a rape accusation for a guy, and sort of the consequences that could happen from it that she might not have been aware of at the time. And the simple fact of the matter is that I didn't think at that time, nor do I now, and nor will I ever think that there was any real possibility of there being an actual accusation being made. It was just more or less a fantasy being created between two high school girls that were kind of creating ways to get back at some guy that had wronged them. Neither one of them would have likely done anything like that. But the problem is that when you play around with these things in your head, it becomes something that becomes more and more acceptable. And anybody who has teenage girls either around them or as a child or whatever that they're taking care of, if you're in any way aware of what's going on in high schools these days, that you'll know that this sort of thing actually happens as almost like a badge of honor in high school, and it's frightening that it is taken so lightly. And I think that that's primarily because, and judging from my own daughter's reaction when I made this comment to her, it had never occurred to her at all that there would be seriously negative consequences from it. They figured that they would, suffer a little bit of blowback as far as, like negative rep around the school for a little bit, and that was about it. But it had never occurred to them at all that this kid could be arrested, could spend time in prison, could be raped himself while in prison, could be beaten and even killed by vigilante groups, could be forced into a depression so deep that they committed suicide. All of which are things that have happened as a result of false rape accusations. And most of those false rape accusations were actually just a lark that they decided that they wanted to get back at this guy with, much like what my daughter was talking about, that had spiraled out of control, and that they didn't want to take anything back because they were afraid of what might happen to them, and then what ended up happening was even worse to this innocent guy. And I did not want to see that kind of thing happening. Not in my wheelhouse. So if that makes me an irresponsible father, then I guess it does. The simple fact of the matter is that I don't believe that making up shit like a rape accusation just to get back at a dude, or for attention, or for any other reason than the fact that you may have been raped, is a legit reason to make that accusation. And I made this very clear to my daughter, and I think every parent should. There's no reason to say, go ahead and say whatever you want, let the law sort it out. Because the law has no interest in sorting it out. The law wants to clear their caseload, and that's really about it. So as a parent, you are the one that is responsible for what your children do, both boys that engage in non-consensual activity, or girls, for that matter, and those who make false rape accusations. You, as a parent, did not instill in your children a respect for honesty. Now, does that make you black as pitch? I don't know. That's not really what I'm after here. What I'm saying is that I firmly believe that my daughter, having a proper perspective on the seriousness of a rape accusation, was partly my province as a parent to educate her on. Now, I understand that this Charlotte guy, he's a journalist and he's got an agenda just like all the rest of them do. It does not surprise me, and it did not surprise me to see that he had taken these particular issues and twisted them. Actually, the only two things that he made mention of me in were the two things that I mentioned sort of to clarify a point rather than as part of the actual narrative, and had told him not really, I was not comfortable with things about my family being published, both of which he published. And both of which he misrepresented and got the facts wrong. Now, is this something that I feel like I have a need to do something about? No. I fully expected it because journalists, well, who the fuck trusts them? Who believes a thing anybody on mainstream media says?
So here we have two versions of the story. One in which Factory's daughter was raped, and Factory just didn't give a shit. In the other, told by Factory himself, his daughter was talking about falsely accusing someone, and was unaware of the severity of such actions. Either Factory is a monster, or Charlotte is a liar. Now, as you all know, I wasn't there, so have no first-hand experience of what was said, nor are there any recordings of the conversation to my knowledge. And two conflicting testimonies isn't a great way to come to a conclusion of what was said. So let's try to work with what little we do have. Let's start with the question, is it possible that a teenage girl, might make up a false allegation to get back at someone?
Court hearing today in the case of the Pinal County teenager accused of sexually assaulting several girls at his former high school. Lawyers for Tyler Cost are going after the social media records of the accusers. Fox 10's Mark Martinez is live in Florence with more on these new developments. Mark.
Yeah, Carrie, Tyler Cost's attorney says social media records obtained by the Pinal County Sheriff's Department as part of this investigation to help prosecutors actually show that his client is a victim here of what he calls a shocking conspiracy organized by a group of teenagers who are out to get Tyler Cost. And now he is asking the judge to order prosecutors to turn over the social media records of everyone involved in this case. 19-year-old Tyler Cost has been called a serial rapist, accused of sexually assaulting 13 young women in Pinal County from 2009 to 2013. But his defense attorney is filing a motion in court today, claiming this was all part of a conspiracy theory by a group of teens who were plotting to attack Tyler, including fabricating a rape allegation to take revenge against Cost for, quote, being a player. Cost's attorneys say social media conversations among some of the victims show they planned the conspiracy at least a week before the allegations came out in March of 2013, even getting together to watch the movie John Tucker Must Die. One alleged victim saying in a Facebook group chat he needs to be taught a lesson, and then he's going to feel the pain he put every girl through. Another comment says, this is just going to be so much fun. One of the young women who said Tyler Cost raped and impregnated her said on her Instagram account weeks after the alleged attack she wanted to marry Cost, calling him a dream come true of a boyfriend.
What we now know is that there were a group of girls who conspired against Tyler to put him in jail. They succeeded at that, and Tyler has been in jail for over a year based on those lies.
And the plot of the 2006 movie John Tucker Must Die is a bunch of girls who get together to get revenge on their ex-boyfriend, and that is what Tyler Cost's defense attorneys are saying happened here. They want, again, the social media records of 6 other people involved in this case to be turned over to them. The judge so far today said he will take it under advisement and could have a decision on that in a couple of weeks. Reporting live from Pinal County, Mark Martinez, Fox 10 News.
That recent news story from just this month is an even more extreme version of Factory's story, and shows what could have happened if his daughter proceeded with a false allegation. It also shows that Factory's story is feasible. But what about Jeff's version of events? Is that feasible? Not knowing Factory, I have to say yes, it could be. But would require Factory to not only be incredibly heartless towards his own daughter, but also incredibly foolish to say such things to a reporter. I'll let you make up your own minds as to which version is true. But personally, I think it's pretty clear that Jeff Sharlet has shown throughout his GQ article that he has an agenda, and is more than willing to twist the truth and misrepresent his opposition. And considering his only evidence of his version of events is his testimony, I'm going to have to side with Factory on this one. His story makes more sense, and Jeff has been shown to be a liar in the past. So unless Sharlet produces more evidence, like a recording of some kind, I'm calling bullshit on his version of events. Once again folks, this is just more reason to always be recording around reporters. Next. So
this is a real issue that we're dealing with today, and to have these guys summarily dismiss it as if that doesn't happen, and this guy saying, you know, if my daughter presses charges against the guy who she says raped her, I'm going to disown her? We've got, you know, problems that we didn't even know existed.
You may remember this little gem from episode 19 of the series.
And since then, I have gotten this blog from Mancheese, which is a great blog, and I hope you follow it. I'm going to put the link in the low bar. But she listened to a interview with the Young Turks, and this is what this woman says. She actually said that female genital mutilation was beneficial because women have less UTIs and STDs.
That video was from Laughing Witch, who was telling us what a terrible person Karen was, because of an article written on the Mancheese blog. Of course, Laughing Witch never actually watched the video in question, but instead relied upon the bias interpretation from Mancheese. Well, there has been an interesting turn of events.
Hey YouTube, it's Laughing Witch. I'm going to do another video.
This video is about Man Cheese or Diana Boston. I have blocked her and banned her on all the social networks. Diana Boston is a TERF. She is a hater. And I recently had a brush with her that was disturbing as all hell. So let me tell you what happened. First of all, I met her because I was following a WordPress blog, which is a great blog. We Hunted the Mammoth, and I went on WordPress and did a search for feminist blogs. I found her blog. She's a radical feminist. I thought, well, let's see what radical feminists are saying. I'm curious, so I started following her blog. First thing I noticed that was strange was at some point she started fighting with Captain Andy about pornography. I don't know what position he took. I didn't really read the blog. I, saw the blog, and I let him know that there had been a blog post about him. Anyway, so after that, the next strange thing I noticed was she did this blog. It's called I'm Tired of Trans Women Silencing Women. And in it she claims that trans women are threatening rape victims and lesbians and victims of domestic violence with rape and murder if they're not going to let them into their kind of small, exclusive little groups. And so I went out there in the comment section and I said, I'm sticking my neck out here, but why don't you just explain to them that these women, need some quiet space because of what they've been through, or something to that effect. And of course they came back and said, oh, violence against women, that basically these people are having giant, violent temper tantrums. And I asked for some evidence. And then I decided I was going to do a very quick video, where I asked all of my subscribers and all the people that I follow to tell me what the fuck is going on with this. So I put it out there, and I got a lot of great responses. Thank you, everybody who came to the channel. Basically, they said, and mostly I talked to a lot of different people, but the Duchess really came out and said, this is what's going on. These are TERFs. They're bullshitting you. They're completely misleading you about what's going on here. And of course, it's a cult, and that's how cults operate. If you brush up against a neo-Nazi, he's not going to come out and start with the white pride bullshit. He's gonna start with, there's, somebody picking on people in an old folks' home, and it's probably a gang of blacks who ride motorcycles and deal heroin. But then when you scratch the surface, you find out none of that's true. They're just fucking haters, and that's what the deal is with Diana Boston and the TERFs. Now, she mocks the term transphobe because she's, I want to curse and swear and just call her every name in the book because she's just that nasty. I want to call her a cunt and a bitch and a fucking low-life slut. But, that's just me wanting to dump on her.
So I give Laughing Witch credit here. She heard a claim, she investigated it, with an open mind, found it to be bullshit, and rejected it. What a shame though, that she couldn't do exactly the same thing when it came to claims about MRAs. This is what we call confirmation bias, and to be fair, it's something we should all be careful with. But the story doesn't end here. Because Man Cheese, aka Diana Boston, aka Sale Polani, aka Joy and Tora, wrote an article about Laughing Witch. LibFem's critical MRA analysis, females who want space are sluts, whores, cunts and Nazis. Good old Sale Polani, just couldn't resist putting MRA in the title, could she? I wonder if Laughing Witch, who has been so critical of the men's rights movement, knows she's actually an MRA, well according to Sale anyway. Next. So it appears one woman has finally had enough of me and my pesky, women wanting things, spaces, and has decided that not only am I cult leader, projection is a funny thing, but I've been lying to her about the fact that males have been chipping away at women's spaces for a long time, and of course this year once again taking their stalkerish mantrums to Mitch Fest. To make it clear, I hardly know this woman. I've watched but a couple of her videos on YouTube and that's it. I've spoken to her in comment sections a few times and she's been to this blog and left some comments. Other than that, I don't know her at all, except she's part of some gang on YouTube that has it in for me because I think prostitution is male violence against women and males aren't females. I honestly don't care about this group, mainly males, who have gone around LaTubes asserting their moral superiority and dogpiling people. Basically, they're a clusterfuck of competing ideas and are decidedly male-focused, i.e. not feminist. So I don't know specifically which individuals she is referring to, but the gang, as Sale puts it, consists of such individuals as Captain Andy, Andrew Norton, Xenostrad 1, Hannibal the Victor, King John Targaryen, Sequester Zone, Hugh James, etc. etc. You know, the type who are likely to appear in a Sargon or Teal Deer pawnage video. You know, the type who are likely to accuse others of dogpiling after they have appeared in a Sargon or Teal Deer pawnage video. How funny they are now being accused of the same. Although, to be honest, I'd have to side with them on this one against Sale. To my knowledge, Sale's claims of dogpiling are as fake and overreactionary as, well, are as fake and overreactionary as their claims of being dogpiled by MRAs. Oh, the irony. But let's continue. Apparently this woman, Laughing Witch, has been coming to my blog to read my expositions on MRAs, but now is offended because of, well, I don't know. I told her to research the very real problem of males wanting entrance into female spaces, and she has a problem with search engines. Honestly, I don't know what her issue is, except I'm a horrible woman who thinks women are actually worthy. It turns out she can't Google and fails to note all the blogs positioned at the bottom of my blog that track endless trans dudes assaults into women's space, murder, rape and child rape, endless online rape and death threats towards those women who desire safe space, no platforming, online-offline harassment, silencing, canceling and reworking women-focused events, such as the vagina monologues. A couple of interesting things here. The first is Sale Baloney's use of language. You'll note Sale goes straight into criticism as hatred towards women mode. You know, the standard stuff used against MRAs on a daily basis. And of course she paints the picture of the evil men's, endlessly victimizing the poor helpless women's. You know, the standard stuff used against MRAs on a daily basis. It would seem, you don't have to be a fedora-wearing, basement-dwelling, can't-get-pussy, neckbeard, penis oppressor to have these arguments used against you. Why, it's almost like they are just a defense mechanism to criticism, and aren't based on reality at all. Funny that. Let's jump ahead a bit in the article where she mentions MRAs again. It is with this side that I give you the compliment to men's rights activism, liberal feminism, where women wanting space is considered Nazi-esque and no reasonable counter-argument is made except to show endless pictures of males who died at the hands of other males while screaming obnoxiously at a woman. Remember folks, feminism isn't about hating males, it's about equality. Next. Now that you silly womenfolk have had your daily MRA rant that really should be titled, "What about Temens you cunt?" A slur we're all familiar with on Twitter. You can sling back to your Nazi bunker where I know, as a Jewish woman, you've all been hiding out. Let's hear it for liberal foxmanism and men's rights, where men's rights to your space trump any concerns your cunt-liddy brains had in mind, 'cause ya know, males must be allowed in, or else. Yep, what can I say to that? But if you think that's funny, check out some of the comments.
I'm gonna show you a good time. You're gonna like this.
So folks, I think we have all learned 3 things today. 1. Feminists will accuse anyone they don't like of being an MRA, even if that person is another feminist who has repeated numerous times how much she hates MRAs. 2. Some feminists will fight for the rights of males, but only if those males are female on the inside. And 3. Some feminists hate all males, even those that are female on the inside. Well, considering some of her past videos, I wasn't expecting to side with Laughing Witch anytime soon. But I have to say, I agree with her on this one. Which just shows how extreme Sale Baloney really is. Next.
And these women are just trying to create justification where they can pretend they're the victims while simultaneously victimizing other people. And I just, I call bullshit on that. And I wanted to tell you, it's bothered me so much. Last night I had a dream, and in my dream, all the men in my community came out as transgender women. And then I turn to this radical feminist, and I look at her and I say, well, maybe it's just evolution, bitch.
So last Friday, Australian time, I managed to catch the Honey Badgers podcast live. I'm a long-time fan of the show, and its range of hosts, but I don't normally get to watch it live. I tend to watch it Friday night if I'm home, otherwise I catch it sometime over the weekend. But this week was a little different, as they were all together in the same room, some of them having traveled a long way to be there. So I made sure I caught this one live. Thanks for the mention, by the way.
Let's get stuck into it.
Poor Rachel, I'm okay. Hashtag books for my hearing.
It's Bane. It's always a good thing. These videos are great. They're like an hour.
It was a big weekend for them. To my knowledge, it was the first time that Dr. Raina Markham got to meet the other Badgers. I'm guessing this might have been true of some of the other Badgers as well, considering they are spread across North America and the globe. It was also a big weekend for them because they were hosting a booth at Calgary Expo, and a number of fans were traveling long distances to meet them. From watching that podcast on Friday, Australian time, it seemed that the first day of the expo had gone well. Saturday, Australian time, I spent the day catching up with an old friend, and late in the evening when I got home, slightly drunk, I saw a live stream with Sargon and Milo Yiannopoulos. I was kind of busy doing things, and kind of listening to it in the background, when I heard something about someone being kicked out of a convention. I thought to myself, are they talking about the Honey Badgers? So I went to the Honey Badgers website, and found this from Sage. Early this morning, staff banned Honey Badger Brigade from the Calgary Comics and Entertainment Expo. Security staff approached the HBB booth, ordered us to leave, and refused to state the reason why unless Allison Tiemann agreed to speak to them away from the other members of the group, without recording. They informed Allison that they had received complaints on social media, including 25 allegations of harassment. No evidence was presented, no request was made for information from HBB, and no specific incident was cited until further questions were asked of security. Upon further questioning, security mentioned the Women in Comics panel discussion from the previous day, where Allison was given permission to speak. Allison spoke briefly in relation to a topic brought up by the panelists. Accusers, however, claimed that Allison derailed the conversation. Allison and myself were in attendance, and you can listen to Allison's statement in the panel here on YouTube. You can hear Allison, myself and indeed the entire panel in the full discussion record. 25 complaints from social media? Wow, is that all it takes these days to get banned from somewhere? But let's listen to the panel discussion in question.
But that's just it. What had happened? At what point did all of a sudden did it become a dirty thing for women to be into this stuff? Like, in the eyes of so many of these men's rights activist types, or...
Would you like us to field that question?
Huh?
Would you like us to field that question?
Sure.
Because I am a men's rights activist, so you can hate on me. The reason why I don't like feminism is because you promote this idea that women are defined by being victims. If you look at the context of all of your issues, men also face considerable problems as well. And they need to be brought into the story, and not just for men's sake, because this hides men's vulnerability, also for the sake of challenging the notion that women are defined as victims.
A couple of important things here. Firstly, the panel brought up men's rights activist first, Allison was just responding. Secondly, Allison asked politely if she could answer the question, which had just been raised by the panel member. And thirdly, the panel member replied positively with, "Sure, go for it." I don't know about the rest of you, but personally I wouldn't consider that either derailing or harassment. I mean, it's not like she was doing this. Can you see the difference? I can. She didn't scream obscenities or abuse, she didn't make rape or death threats, and she didn't say or do anything that might be considered intimidation or harassment. She simply responded to, and answered, a question asked by a panelist. After politely asking if she could do so. But let me play devil's advocate for a moment, and ask the simple question, what if what she did, although not harassment, was still against the rules of the expo? What if, somewhere in the fine print of the terms and conditions, there's a line about audience members not responding to panel members, even after asking their permission to do so? Let's for argument's sake say this was the case. Then what would be the appropriate reaction? I think most people would say something like a warning, or possibly something a little bit more extreme, like banning Allison from the audience of the rest of the panels, for this convention. Sounds reasonable, right? I mean, she didn't run through the auditorium screaming, or pull a fire alarm, or make threats, or sexually assault anyone. So, as the so-called crime was minor, then shouldn't the punishment also be proportional? I mean, we don't cut off someone's feet for jaywalking, do we? So what was her punishment for responding to a question asked by one of the panel?
Hello everybody, my name is Allison Tiemann. I am the writer and artist for Xenospora, and I'm also the person who had the original idea for Honey Badger Radio. As you probably know by now, I've been banned not just from Calgary Expo, but from all of the events the organizers put on across Canada.
Because she responded to a panelist, she has now been banned for life from any future events run by these organizers across her home country of Canada. As she is an independent comic creator, this is a very severe punishment, and undoubtedly will impact her ability to promote and sell her comic. I think it's only fair to ask the organizers, isn't this more than a little extreme? Was she really such a disruptionist to warrant such a severe response? Now some of you, who may not be familiar with Allison and the other honey badgers, are probably saying, there must be more to this story for such a severe punishment. And if you are thinking that, then good on you, as we all should be asking such questions whenever examining a story. And there are other claims, so let's examine them, and the honey badgers' counter-arguments, and see what holds water. So let's have a look at the feminist site, the Mary Sue, and go through the claims made in their article titled, Members of Gamergate Plan to Infiltrate Calgary Expo to Actively Disrupt Panels. Calgary Expo has evicted them. Actively disrupt panels? Really? This would suggest that not only is asking permission to reply to a point, and being granted permission, somehow disrupting, but also that Allison was planning this so-called disruption at more than one panel. Of course there is no evidence for this, it's just poisoning the well. And what about the word infiltrate? It makes it sound like they were dressed as ninjas, crawling through the ventilation shafts. Just for the record, if the honey badgers actually did that, I'd have even more respect for them. Maybe next year. But just for the record, Mary Sue, this is what disruption looks like.
Right now, I'm at the University of Ottawa. This is the place where they shut down Ann Coulter by pulling the fire alarm. Well, our friend Janice Fiamengo experienced a similar problem. She was shut down last Friday. Check it out.
Okay, you know, it's the signature of a totalitarian ideology to attempt to quash dissent. So every time you interrupt, you're merely showing your repressive tendencies. You're not showing anything about your virtue. Okay, let's forget it.
Can you see the difference? The article starts with, "You know, for a loosely defined group who's constantly claiming they don't have nefarious purposes, they sure do like casting themselves as the villain. Also, for a loosely defined group who claim to rail against those with an agenda, they sure do have a clear agenda." Taking place this weekend, Calgary Expo, who the Mary Sue joined forces with for a cosplay contest this year, has a great stance on harassment and bullying. From their frequently asked questions, the Comic and Entertainment Expo Committee does not tolerate harassment of any type at any of its events. Harassment can take many forms. It may be, but is not limited to, words, signs, offensive jokes, cartoons, pictures, posters, email jokes or statements, pranks, intimidation, physical assaults or contact, or violence. None of which Allison or the Honey Badgers committed. But then again, I guess when they say that harassment may be words, signs, pictures, posters or statements, it could be open to interpretation. I would assume that they mean what is the community standard, that is the wider community, not the social justice community. What if a very religious individual is offended by a heavy metal t-shirt or poster? Is that harassment? What about a social justice warrior being offended by a Gamergate t-shirt or poster? Is that harassment? What about an MRA being offended by a Drinking Male Tears t-shirt or poster? Is that harassment? What about an anti-feminist being offended by a feminist t-shirt or poster? Is that harassment? Most normal adults understand that not everything in the world is made specifically for them, and that they will come across material which they may not like, find distasteful, or offensive. So let's be clear here. The Honey Badgers did not do anything which would be considered offensive or harassment in the broader community. They didn't make racist or sexist comments. They didn't display pornography. They didn't make threats. They didn't sexually harass or assault anyone. They didn't scream insults or vulgarities at the top of their lungs.
Now, if you would shut the fuck up for the 50th millionth time!
But one of them did dare to question the feminist narrative. Oh, the heresy. Next. The convention also has large signs indicating that neither verbal nor physical harassment will be tolerated, in addition to the Expo Equality and Cosplay is not consent signage. Unfortunately, none of that prevented this from happening. The article then shows this image. The image links to a long list of tweets, some of which read, "You can believe ethics and games journalism all you want, but if you're only attending feminist panels you've got a shit agenda." Oh look, the word agenda again. Next. Calgary Expo site seems to have a harassment policy on their site, but then they allow a hate group to exhibit? Hate group? Really? Next. Yeesh. I was worried about Gamergaters trying to start shit and be disruptive at conventions. And what this individual means by disruptive is simply existing. Next. Great job, Calgary Expo. Nothing more professional than giving space to a hate group. Hate group? Did I miss something? Has Gamergate been involved in some type of ethnic cleansing while I wasn't looking? Did they heartlessly oppress countless millions last Tuesday afternoon, while I was distracted by a phone call? Because it seems I'm missing something here. Unless, of course, this is just a silencing tactic, where one group actively demonizes the other, to create a negative social stigma, enabling the first group to use misinformed public opinion to censor the second. Next. Calgary Expo. Does anyone even know what the word censorship means anymore? Yep, I think I just demonstrated I do. But back to the article. A Gamergate-affiliated group known as Honey Badger Radio procured a booth for Calgary Expo through a crowdfunding campaign specifically geared toward gaining attendance under false pretenses. The people representing them are Karen Strawn, Mike Stevenson, Allison Tiemann, and Sage Gerard, and of their campaign they wrote, "I have to ask, when exactly was Gamergate put on the same level as the KKK? Okay, let's see what the Mary Sue's smoking gun is first, and then deal with the claims of gaining attendance under false pretenses." The article presents a block of text from the Honey Badgers, but instead of reading it myself, I'll let Karen do it for me. Take it away, Karen.
This is hilarious. In April of this year, the Honey Badgers plan to put on a booth at the Calgary Comics and Entertainment Expo. We plan to infiltrate nerd culture cunningly disguised as their own. Each of us has been carefully crafting a persona of nerdiness through decades of dedication to comics, science fiction, fantasy, comedy games, and other geekery, waiting for this moment, our moment, to slip among the unaware. Once there, we will start distributing the totalitarian message that nerd and gamer culture is perfectly wonderful, just as it is, and should be left alone to go its own way.
It would seem that either the Mary Sue is clutching at straws, in an attempt to produce some kind of evidence, or they are just incapable of understanding sarcasm. It would seem that not only the Mary Sue's editorial staff have this disability, but it also afflicts at least one of their readers. For example, the Mary Sue goes on to say, however, Honey Badger Radio did not use their website to apply for vendor exhibitor status. The Honey Badger Brigade, on the Calgary Expo website, links to a webcomic site, run by Honey Badger team instead. If you didn't think all of this was enough to warrant expulsion from the convention, it is. There's more. Once again, I'll let Karen handle this one.
Since we were ejected, rumors have been flying on social media. Accusations of disruption of panels still continue. One commenter has even asserted that we were kicked out for harassing other booths and attendees by handing out manifestos. Our most substantial interaction with any other booth was to lend our next-door neighbors a pen. I'd challenge you to find anyone at the con who received one of these alleged manifestos from us and can present it to you. The truth is, we didn't bring any leaflets and only spoke to the people approaching our booth, other than complimenting someone on their display or praising the mini donuts. Allegations that we somehow tricked the convention into hosting a Honey Badger booth are contradicted by the Honey Badger badges and banners and listing the con printed up in their programs and materials. Many, including the initial Mary Sue article, quoted our fundraiser blurb, which was Swiftian satire, as representing our true and sincere intentions. That we really have been spending decades only pretending to be nerds, geeks, creators, so that we can infiltrate nerd culture at this particular convention to spread our totalitarian message that nerd culture is just fine as it is, and that nerds are mostly just nice people who should be free to like what they like.
I'd just like to point out here, to the Mary Sue, that the Honey Badgers routinely do podcasts on nerd culture. That in itself should be reason enough for them to have a booth at the convention. They didn't infiltrate, because there wasn't a need for them to do so. But the Mary Sue continues with its groundbreaking style of journalism, by presenting us with yet more evidence. The article continues. Their show is broadcast by A Voice for Men, one of the biggest men's rights website on the internet. Less specific plans for Calgary Expo were also detailed on that group site, which is classified as a women-hating site by the Southern Poverty Law Center, and said in part, the Honey Badgers are a diverse group of female gender apostates, women who oppose outdated ideas of gender, particularly the association of womanhood with weakness. We offer an alternative to the damaging portrayal of women as victims of geek and gamer culture. Okay, let's deal with the AVFM and SPLC claims first. Although it is true that the Honey Badgers originally broadcast on AVFM, that's no longer the case, nor has it been for some time. But what about the SPLC claim, I hear you ask? It is true that the SPLC did list AVFM as a hate group in their Intelligence Report, Spring 2012, issue number 145. A claim made based on information from man boobs, no less. Yes, you heard that right. This of course led to a retraction 2 months later. It should be mentioned that the SPLC did not label MRAs as members of a hate movement. Nor did our article claim that the grievances they air on their websites, false rape accusations, ruinous divorce settlements and the like, are all without merit. But we did call out specific examples of misogyny and the threat, overt or implicit, of violence. Although this is a retraction, it is a half-hearted retraction, as the article goes on to defend radical feminists and clear examples of hate towards males. This is clear evidence of a bias in the SPLC. This is all part of a bigger problem with the SPLC, where their credibility has been lost. Is it any wonder that the FBI no longer considers them a reliable source? So to sum up, we have a false claim, based on an unreliable source, which was then retracted, and made by an organization that has lost its credibility. And then Mary Sue considers this evidence. Well done, Mary Sue, well done. Now let's have a quick look at the last part of that paragraph before moving on. It reads, "The honey badgers are a diverse group of female gender apostates, women who oppose outdated ideas of gender, particularly the association of womanhood with weakness. We offer an alternative to the damaging portrayal of women as victims of geek and gamer culture. And what exactly is wrong with this? I don't understand why the Mary Sue would present this as some form of nefarious evidence. Unless they want women to be seen as weak, and victims. Oh, hold on, the Mary Sue is a feminist publication, isn't it? I guess that explains it. Next. We're not done just yet. The group also attended the Women into Comics panel last night. Panelist Brittany LeBlanc gave us this account of the events that transpired. We were about 15 minutes into the panel when a woman in the second row stood up and identified herself as a men's rights activist. She and her male companion both came to raise issues they felt would not be covered by our panel. Raising points about the way men are portrayed in comics struck a note with all the panelists, as we agreed that we want to see a diversity across body types, characters, races, etc. in mainstream comics. Not everyone wants to see a hero who looks like he's built like Gaston from Beauty and the Beast. They also accused us of presenting all women as victims, which was an outright lie and derailing tactic. Their questions did take up quite a bit of time at the panel and served to derail the topic onto another tangent, which was frustrating for the panel and for those in the audience. It's what they came to do, and in part, they succeeded. I would say that it brought up some great discussions though, allowing us to talk about the lack of representation for people of color in comics and to give well-deserved props to artists like Sophie Campbell, who has done an amazing job in showcasing a broad range of bodies with her art in Gem and the holograms. It's disappointing that they weren't there to have a conversation or to listen to what we, and members of the audience, were saying. They wanted to stand up and have their say, but not to listen or try to understand the points of view other people in the room had. This was further proven by the video discussion they posted later last night, in which they mentioned our panel and that we were donning the ball gowns of our victimhood, which I am not even entirely sure how to take. I will admit to not watching the whole video, and I think anyone who attempts to watch it would understand why. I truly believe in freedom of speech, but coming to a panel with the entire purpose of derailing it and shooting down the voices on the panel isn't constructive. It appears that was their plan for the expo, to come and to loudly take over the spaces of other people. Although it was not violent or threatening, it's disrespectful, disappointing and offers a prime example of why these panels need to exist in the first place. The Mary Sue then goes on to show the anti-harassment policy which Allison supposedly breached. Panelist Brittany LeBlanc herself said, although it was not violent or threatening, it's disrespectful. Is being disrespectful a form of harassment? Seriously?
But that's just it. What had happened? At what point did all of a sudden did it become a dirty thing for women to be into this stuff? Like in the eyes of so many of these men's rights activist types, or.
Would you like us to field that question?
Huh?
Would you like us to field that question?
Sure, go for it.
Because I am a men's rights activist, so you can hate on me. The reason why I don't like feminism is because you promote this idea that women are defined by being victims. If you look at the context of all of your issues, men also face considerable problems as well. And they need to be brought into the story, and not just for men's sake, because this hides men's vulnerability, also for the sake of challenging the notion that women are defined as victims.
Disrespectful? Really? I personally don't see it. The topic of MRAs was brought up by a member of the panel, not Allison. And they were discussing gender and comics. So I don't see how Allison was derailing the conversation. But even if some did find this disrespectful, it's still not harassment. And in no way deserved the harsh punishment by the expo. Why not a warning? Why not ban Allison from attending any further panels for the duration of the expo? Why such an over-the-top reaction, based on 25 disgruntled tweets? Only 25. That's all it took. Do we really need any more proof that feminism is the establishment? If we were living in a modern-day patriarchy, and women's voices were routinely silenced, as we are constantly told, would it only take 25 tweets? In case you haven't realized yet, feminists are a protected class, and being a member of a protected class is privilege. It means you can say and do whatever you like, and if anyone dares to respond, they can easily be silenced and dismissed. It means a narrative is created, where what someone is saying is unimportant, and only the group they belong to matters. It means that group preference strangles facts and logic. And the poisonous groupthink cacophony drowns out any other voices, no matter how reasonable they may be. This isn't equality. This isn't fair representation. But it is modern-day feminism. I'd just like to encourage everyone to support Allison any way they can. And don't be afraid to let the organizers of the expo know they are full of shit. And that we won't let feminists hold a gun to our heads, when it comes to free expression, art and culture. Do you remember this guy from my last video?
Feminism exists as a counterpoint to a culture that legally kept them down for centuries, thousands of years of religious and social and legal oppression, treating women like cattle.
I got a lot of mileage out of that cattle comment. Anyway, his name is Israel Kane, and he made a response video to part 21 in this series.
So this was an interesting week on the Blackfinger blog. I got my very first response video from a YouTuber named Bane66AU. And it's a pretty slick little production, I gotta say. I'm a fan, dude. Your whole thing with like the Kool-Aid jar with the skull, and it's pretty badass.
I have to admit, it's a little strange to get a response from someone who has been featured in this series, which is so pleasant. Usually they just delete their video, or become abusive. Anyway, he seems like an interesting character, and I'll get around to responding to his video, and taking a look at some of his comments in a future episode. But for now I have a song from him after my credits. I was hoping to include the song in last episode, but just ran out of time. Anyway, that's it for this. Hold on, hold on. The damn honey badger ninjas are infiltrating the safe space at the end of my video. Go away, guys, let me finish the show. Anyway, that's it for this episode, folks. So as always, go away, honey badger ninjas. Until next time, don't drink the poison Kool-Aid.
So I don't know. I've been trying to figure out what to do, and I sat down and I wrote a song for them. You can tell me what you think. Now, MRA stands for Men's Rights Activists. MGTOW stands for Men Going Their Own Way, which I think everybody's cool with. Every MGTOW guy out there, go your own way. Go the fuck on. Head on. The ladies are cool with it. We're cool with it. Y'all just get on, okay? I could say that MRA stands for mentally retarded assholes, but that's not nice to the retarded, so I won't say it now. And oh, MGTOwn, y'all don't know what you're talking about. If you could listen, then you might get some, but y'all don't get none. So you just sit and pound. You know you can hang out without the ladies all day, but there's already a name for that, boys. It's called being gay, and that's okay. You can totally be gay. Freeze up more for JJ, for guys like me, shit, who can listen a wee bit and learn to coexist peacefully with someone who sits down to pee, and maybe not blame the good women in your life for your everyday, real, mundane, typical responsibility. I could say that MRA stands for mentally retarded assholes, but that's not nice to the retarded, so I won't say it now. Oh well, MGTOW, y'all don't know what the hell y'all talking about. If you just listen, you just might get some, but y'all don't get none. So you just sit and pound. You can hang out without the ladies all day. There's already a name for that. It's called being gay, and that's okay. You can totally be gay. Sitting round in your chat rooms, jerking each other off all day.